What do you want to be when you grow up? How many of you guys have asked yourselves this question before? Show of hands. Everyone asks themselves this question. I used to ask myself this question all the time. When I was in kindergarten, I got a Student of the Week award. I think it was for coloring inside the lines or something like that. And I was interviewed for my school newspaper. The teacher who was interviewing me asked me this question. Michael, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I looked her dead in the eye. And without a moment's hesitation, I said, I want to be a dinosaur. Okay, so that one didn't quite work out. In high school, if you had asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would have said a lawyer. My parents were a little bit happier about that one. It's a little bit more traditional, a little bit more mainstream. Last year, I graduated from college. I went to Harvard and studied political science and education. And suddenly, I stopped asking this question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Why? Well, don't get me wrong, it's not that I grew up and I became the person I wanted to be. No, I stopped asking this question because I came to one simple realization. I realized that I had no idea what kind of job I would be in 20 years. And it's not just me. Our entire society is changing. Technology is changing the economy in fundamental ways. Industries are rising and dying. We have jobs today that didn't even exist 10 years ago. I have a question for you all. What would you guess is the most common job in the United States? Feel free to just shout out some answers.
McDonald's.
McDonald's, okay, fast food worker. Any other guesses?
Computer science.
Social media, okay. Anything else?
Computer science.
Engineer? Lawyer? Let's take one final one.
Nurses.
Nurses, okay. Let's do a quick audience vote. How many of you would guess that the most common job in the United States is fast food workers? Show of hands. Okay. What about engineers? Lawyers? Nurses? Okay, a lot of you guys didn't raise your hands. So for the rest of you, how many of you think it's other, something else? Okay, well those are all great guesses. But the most common job in the United States is driving. Truck, delivery, and tractor driving. There are 3.5 million truck drivers in the United States. Now another question. How many of you guys have heard of Google's self-driving car? Show of hands. I live in San Francisco, California. Google headquarters is also in the Bay Area. Already, there are self-driving cars being tested on the streets of San Francisco. And experts predict that in 12 to 15 years, most of the cars on America's highways will be self-driving. So what's going to happen to the most common job in the United States?
It's going to disappear.
It's going to disappear. Now, this is not just driving, it's not just transportation. All jobs and all industries are changing. According to the US Department of Labor, 65% of today's grade school kids will be in a job that hasn't been invented yet. So this brings me to the central questions of my talk. What do you need to know to succeed in a job that doesn't even exist yet? And what can college prepare you to do so that you can thrive in this uncertain future? So here's the interesting thing. Although the jobs of the future are unknown, the skills you'll need to know to succeed in these jobs is known. Top employers, top graduate schools universally agree that there are 4 key skills you need to know to lead the future. These 4 key skills are critical thinking, creative thinking, effective communication, and effective interaction. In other words, being able to break down problems, being able to come up with creative solutions, being able to communicate those solutions to other people in speaking and writing, and being able to work in teams and lead teams to make these solutions a reality. 93% of employers believe that these 4 skills are more important than the major you study in college. In other words, in order to succeed in the jobs of the future, you need to know how to think, not what to think. Now, we know what these skills are, And we know that college is a place to learn these skills. College is a time in your lives when you're preparing for a life and preparing for a career. But here's the shocking thing. Most colleges don't do a good job of teaching these skills directly. In a 2011 study, an NYU professor and a University of Virginia professor conducted a study with 2,300 college students. They had these college students take a test of critical thinking their freshman year, and then take the same exact test their senior year. And they found that 36% of these college students demonstrated no measurable improvement in critical thinking over 4 years of college. Why is this? Why is college not doing such a good job of teaching students these skills? Well, I think there are a couple reasons. The first is how you learn in college, the classroom. How many of you guys have been in a lecture hall before in the classroom? And how many of you, keep your hands up if you felt disengaged and bored in that lecture hall? Can you learn if you're disengaged and bored? No. And it turns out that the research shows that lecture halls aren't effective either. The research shows that you remember 5% of what you've learned 2 months after a lecture. And yet, this is the way we've been teaching for hundreds and thousands of years. This is a lecture hall in 14th century Bologna, Italy, okay? Hundreds of years ago. And this is a class I took 5 years ago, my freshman year at Harvard. It's a class called Justice. It was me, the professor, and 900 other students. There's a second reason why colleges aren't doing a good job of teaching these skills. And that's what you learn. The content, the examples, the curriculum. If you ask a college, how do you teach critical thinking? How do you teach communication skills? They'll say, well, we have this freshman year writing course, this English course, and you come in and you write 5-paragraph essays 3 times a semester. But here's the thing. Communication in the real world isn't about 5-paragraph essays. In the real world, you are drafting tweets. You're writing long emails. You're negotiating over the phone, and maybe you're even giving a TEDx talk. That's communication in the real world. Colleges don't do such a good job of giving hands-on, real-world examples. So one of the biggest myths about colleges is that while many of them say they teach general, relevant skills, a lot of them only teach specific, outdated content. They teach you what to think, not how to think. I think this is a problem. I think it's a problem for individuals, for all of you who are going to go out to college. I think it's a problem for our society as it changes faster than ever before. And I decided it's a problem that I wanted to help solve. So last year when I graduated from college, I started working for a new university called Minerva. We were founded in 2012 by a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, a Harvard dean, and a senator and governor from Nebraska, with the goal of teaching students how to succeed in jobs that don't yet exist. And not just getting these jobs, but creating new jobs and leading new fields. And not just making money for a career, but living a meaningful and a fulfilled life. Now, there are some things that are pretty traditional about Minerva. It's still a 4-year accredited college degree with recognized Bachelor of Arts and Bachelors of Science degrees. There's still dormitories for 4 years. And there are some things that are very different. And the main thing that's different is that the goal is to teach these 4 key skills explicitly. Instead of large lecture halls where you are sitting passively in the back, every class at Minerva is a small seminar with discussion and debate and real-world examples. Instead of taking tests where you cram for facts and forget things afterwards, you do real-world location-based projects. Instead of living in a single place for 4 years, Minerva's campus is in 7 world cities. Dorms in all of these places, and every student goes to every single one of these cities by the time they graduate. Freshman year in San Francisco, sophomore year in Berlin and Buenos Aires, junior year in Bangalore and Seoul, and senior year in London and Istanbul. And finally, instead of paying $40,000 a year in tuition, tuition is $10,000 a year. And we have generous rebates. Now. Here's the thing. Minerva's only one institution. We're only going to educate a couple hundred, a couple thousand students per year. Every year in the United States, there are 20.2 million college students. Some of you guys in the audience will go off to college. every single one of you, every single one of those 20 million needs to know these 4 key skills. So I want to leave you with one final story. 5 years ago, I was here in Washington, D.C. I was very fortunate to be selected for this one-week program in government and politics. And it was a breezy March day. It was Wednesday morning. And my fellow delegates and I went to the White House. We went into the East Room of the White House. We piled in. We were up on bleachers. You know, like elementary school yearbook photos, everyone's always on bleachers. It doesn't happen in high school, but it happens in elementary school. So we were up on these bleachers, and we were awaiting anxiously for an audience with President Barack Obama. And we were sitting there, and we were waiting, we were fidgeting. There was this one long corridor, a red carpet leading to the front of the White House from the East Room. And it felt like hours that we were waiting there. And finally, there's this huge collective sigh. And we start seeing him walking towards us. He has his hands in his pockets. He has his shoulders kind of thrown back, his head cocked to the side. And he's just kind of walking, sauntering down this carpet. And finally, he gets to the threshold of the room, and he looks up, and he says, "How's everybody doing?" He had the most swag of anybody I've ever seen. The room went crazy. One girl burst into tears. One guy started a USA chant that went on for like 2 minutes. It was crazy. And there are a lot of things about that memory that are just a total blur for me. But one thing I do remember, he left us with this piece of advice. He said, don't think about what you want to be. Think about what you want to do. And today, as many of you think about college, as you think about taking charge of your own education, as you think about preparing for jobs that don't even exist yet, I want to leave you with this one final piece of advice. Don't think about what you want to be. Think about the skills you'll need to know and how you'll learn them. Thank you.